You dare threaten Earth with your pathetic excuse for a doomsday weapon? Captain Amanda Rodriguez couldn't help but snort, actually snort, into the video feed. The alien commander's bioluminescent patches flickered in what she assumed was confusion or annoyance, probably both. This is no threat, human. This is a promise. The Zekthar commander's translucent appendages rippled as they spoke, creating an effect that would have been mesmerizing if it wasn't attached to such a colossal idiot. Our quantum destabilizer can reduce your entire solar system to its constituent atoms. Uh-huh. Rodriguez took a long sip of her coffee, making sure the slurping sound was extra loud. And how long did it take you to build this super weapon of yours? The alien's protective membrane twitched. 37 of your Earth years. 37 years? Rodriguez whistled. That's cute. Hey, Dr. Kumar, how long would it take us to replicate their tech based on these scans? Dr. Priya Kumar glanced up from her holographic display, pushing her glasses up her nose with one finger. Oh, about 6 hours? Maybe 7 if we want to add some improvements. Their quantum alignment is really inefficient. The Zekthar commander's bioluminescence shifted to a sickly yellow. Impossible! Our greatest minds— Yeah, your greatest minds spent almost 4 decades on this. Rodriguez waved her hand dismissively. Look, I'm going to level with you here, because I'm actually a nice person. You really don't want to start this fight. Your arrogance is— Did you know, Rodriguez continued as if the alien hadn't spoken, that humans invented dabbing? Like, as a dance move? We're the species that looked at ourselves and thought, you know what would be hilarious? Throwing our face into our elbow while sticking our other arm out. And then we did it. For years. We still do it sometimes. Ironically, of course. The alien commander stared in silence for a moment. I fail to see the relevance. The relevance, my gelatinous friend, is that we're absolutely unhinged. Like, completely off our rockers. We invented hundreds of ways to make bread more interesting. We keep deadly predators in our homes and call them good boys and precious babies. We jumped off cliffs for fun, and then figured out how to make it safer just so we could jump off higher cliffs. The command deck crew tried to maintain their professional composure, but a few snickers escaped. Lieutenant Michael O'Brien didn't even try to hide his grin as he continued monitoring the weapon signatures from the alien vessel. Your species' peculiarities do not concern us, the commander insisted, though their appendages were now writhing in what looked suspiciously like nervousness. Our weapon takes 3 hours to charge, has a structural weakness in the posterior cooling array, and can't actually maintain quantum coherence beyond the orbit of Mars, Kumar interrupted, still not looking up from her display. Also, you really should have used a triple redundant containment field instead of that dual-layer setup. That's just asking for trouble. The yellow tinge of the commander's bioluminescence was starting to edge into green. How did you— Oh, we hacked your systems about 20 minutes ago, Rodriguez said cheerfully. Your cybersecurity is adorable, by the way. Using prime numbers as encryption? That's like Information Security 101. We cracked that while playing Candy Crush. This is impossible! The commander's membrane was now fully pulsating. Our systems are— Hey, Captain? Lieutenant Jessica Patel called from her station. Remember that weird TikTok trend from a few years back where people were eating Tide Pods? Rodriguez grinned. Oh yeah. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. She turned back to the increasingly distressed alien. We had to specifically tell our species not to eat laundry detergent, and you know what? Some people still did it anyway, just to see what would happen. I don't understand, the commander admitted, their translator struggling to convey their confusion. Of course you don't, that's the point. Rodriguez leaned forward. You're dealing with a species that invented parkour, which is basically just finding the most unnecessarily complicated way to get from point A to point B, and then said, you know what would make this better? Doing it on skyscrapers. We're the species that looked at coffee and thought, this bitter bean juice isn't keeping us awake enough. Let's concentrate it into espresso. And then we made energy drinks. And then we mixed energy drinks with espresso because why the hell not? Captain, the alien commander tried to interject. These cultural observations— Oh, I'm not done. We're the species that saw lightning, actual bolts of electricity from the sky, and decided to tie keys to kites to see what would happen. We looked at the atom, the fundamental building block of matter, and thought, I wonder what happens if we split that. And then we did it. Multiple times. We're the species that invented hot sauce and then kept making it hotter because we wanted to feel the pain. The alien's translucent body had begun to take on a distinctly grayish tinge. Your point being? My point is, Rodriguez said, setting down her coffee mug with a deliberate click, that you're threatening a species that turns survival into an extreme sport. Everything we do to the absolute limit, and then we push past that limit just to see what happens. Do you really want to find out what happens when you give us a reason to weaponize that particular quirk of our psychology? There was a long moment of silence on the command deck. Even the human crew had stopped pretending to work and were watching the exchange with barely concealed amusement. Dr. Kumar, Rodriguez called out, not breaking eye contact with the alien commander. How many ways have we already figured out to improve their weapon design? 17 major optimizations, 32 minor ones, Kumar replied promptly. Oh, and I just thought of another one. Make that 18 major optimizations. We could probably increase its power output by about 300% while reducing the charging time to 15 minutes. 20 if we want to add the cup holders. Cup holders? The commander squeaked. Well, yeah, Kumar shrugged. If we're going to rebuild it, might as well make it comfortable to operate. Oh, we could add a sound system too. Every superweapon needs a good soundtrack. Rodriguez smiled. It wasn't a particularly nice smile. So, would you like to reconsider your threat? Or should we demonstrate exactly why humans have warning labels on everything from chainsaws to Pop-Tarts? The alien commander's bioluminescence had faded to an almost transparent gray. Perhaps we should discuss this through diplomatic channels? Wonderful idea! Rodriguez clapped her hands together. I'll have my people call your people. We can do lunch. Fair warning, though. Humans invented molecular gastronomy, so our diplomatic dinners can get a bit experimental. After the transmission ended, the command deck erupted in laughter. Lieutenant O'Brien wiped tears from his eyes. Did you see their face when you mentioned the Tide Pods? The best part is, Kumar said, finally looking up from her display, I wasn't kidding about the improvements. Their weapon design is actually pretty fascinating, just incredibly inefficient. It's like they never heard of quantum tunneling optimization. Rodriguez picked up her coffee mug again. Send a copy of the scans to R&D. Not because we're going to build it, but because they'll have fun pointing out all the flaws. You know how they get when they find new tech to critique. Already done, Kumar replied. Engineering is having a field day. They've started a betting pool on how many basic physics principles the Zekthar ignored. Speaking of betting pools, Patel chimed in. Does this count as a diplomatic victory, or a technological one? The crew's been wagering on how we'd resolve our first alien confrontation. Rodriguez considered this for a moment. Let's call it a cultural victory. After all, we didn't beat them with superior firepower or fancy diplomacy. We just reminded them that humans are basically chaos entities with opposable thumbs and a concerning level of scientific knowledge. And a fondness for adding cup holders to everything, Kumar added. That too. Rodriguez smiled and settled back in her captain's chair. You know what the really funny part is? We didn't even mention the fact that humans invented ASMR, or that we deliberately bred wolves into pugs, or that we created an entire extreme sport around cheese rolling. Maybe we should save some material for the diplomatic dinner, O'Brien suggested. I hear the Zekthar are particularly interested in human culture now. Good point. Besides, we shouldn't overwhelm them too quickly. They still haven't discovered what humans did with fermented grape juice. Rodriguez's grin widened. I can't wait to introduce them to the concept of wine tasting. Nothing says humans are insane quite like spending centuries developing increasingly complex ways to drink old fruit juice. As the crew settled back into their regular duties, still occasionally chuckling, Rodriguez couldn't help but feel a bit sorry for the Zakathar. They had come expecting to find a simple, easily intimidated species. Instead, they found humans, the universe's most ridiculous apex predators, a species that combined the curiosity of a cat with the problem-solving skills of a supercomputer and the self-preservation instincts of a sugar-rushed toddler. The Zakathar would learn, just as humans had learned long ago, that there's nothing more dangerous than a species that turns, hold my beer and watch this, into an entire philosophy of technological advancement. And if they didn't learn, well, humans had gotten very, very good at surviving things they probably shouldn't have survived. It would be interesting to see how the Zekthar dealt with a species that had essentially weaponized their own ridiculousness. After all, as any human could tell you, the most terrifying force in the universe isn't a quantum destabilizer or a doomsday weapon. It's human ingenuity combined with human stubbornness and just a dash of, I wonder what happens if I push this button. The scariest part? Humans wouldn't even need the 37 years to build their own version of the quantum destabilizer. They'd do it in a week, add cup holders and a sound system, and then immediately start working on ways to make it do things it was never designed to do, just because they could. That's just how humans are. They see something impressive and immediately think, neat. But what if we made it play Doom? And that, more than any weapon or threat, is why the Zikthar made the right choice in backing down. Because there's nothing more dangerous than a species that turned "why not" into a scientific principle. 2 weeks after the quantum destabilizer incident, Captain Rodriguez found herself standing in the reception hall of Starbase Gamma, watching with barely concealed amusement as the Zikthar delegation tried to process the concept of a chocolate fountain.
So, you take perfectly good sustenance? The lead diplomat, whose name roughly translated to Shimmer in Twilight, said slowly. And deliberately make it fall repeatedly? And then we dip other food in it, Rodriguez confirmed, popping a chocolate-covered strawberry into her mouth.
Sometimes we even dip things that probably shouldn't be dipped in chocolate, just to see what happens. The Zecthar's bioluminescent patches flickered in what she'd learned to recognize as bewilderment. But why? Because it's fun, Dr. Kumar chimed in, approaching with a plate of what appeared to be her latest culinary experiment. Speaking of which, would any of you like to try my latest creation? I call it quantum entropy bites. The alien's protective membranes rippled nervously. Are they weaponized? Oh no, nothing like that, Kumar assured them, though her grin suggested otherwise. They're just molecular gastronomy experiments, liquid nitrogen frozen spheres of mango puree with a center of carbonated passion fruit foam, coated in pop rocks and edible gold leaf. What? Shimmer and Twilight's translator seemed to struggle with the concept. We got bored with regular food, Rodriguez explained, helping herself to one of Kumar's creations. So we started playing with it. Did you know we have competitive cooking shows? Like we turned food preparation into a sport, with time limits and everything. The Zecthar diplomatic team huddled together, their appendages intertwining in what humans had dubbed the alien group chat pose. After a moment, one of them, whose name translated to Ripple of Understanding, stepped forward bravely and accepted a quantum entropy bite. The resulting display of bioluminescence was spectacular. The sensation, Ripple of Understanding exclaimed. It's like a tiny explosion in my nutrient processing center. And then, bubbles? And some form of crystalline precipitation? That would be the pop rocks, Kumar said proudly. Wait until you try the wasabi ice cream. Should we tell them about surstrumming? Lieutenant O'Brien whispered to Rodriguez. Let's save something for the next diplomatic crisis, she whispered back. Besides, I don't think their environmental suits can handle that level of human culinary achievement yet. The evening progressed in a similar vein, with the human delegation systematically introducing their alien guests to increasingly bizarre aspects of human culture. The Zikthar were particularly fascinated by the concept of fusion cuisine, though they seemed unable to grasp why humans would deliberately combine different cultural food traditions. But your Italian, Korean, Mexican fusion tacos, Shimmer and Twilight protested. They're not necessary for survival. They don't optimize nutrient intake. They don't even solve any practical problems. They solve the problem of us wanting to eat Italian, Korean, Mexican fusion tacos, Rodriguez pointed out. Sometimes the only problem we're trying to solve is, wouldn't it be cool if... That's not a problem. That's just human nature, Kumar suggested. Wait until you hear about our music. We have a genre called throat-singing dubstep fusion. The aliens' collective color shift to pale green suggested they might need a moment to process this information. Rodriguez took pity on them and decided to steer the conversation towards slightly more diplomatic waters. So about that quantum destabilizer of yours, she said casually. Our R&D team has some suggestions for improvements, purely in the interest of scientific collaboration, of course. Shimmer and Twilight's patches flickered rapidly. You want to help us improve our ultimate weapon? Well, yeah, it's kind of painful watching you use such an inefficient design. Besides, we figured out how to make it run on renewable energy and reduce its carbon footprint by 80%. But it's a weapon of mass destruction. Exactly. If we're going to have weapons of mass destruction floating around, they should at least be environmentally friendly. Rodriguez shrugged. We also added a coffee maker alongside those cup holders we mentioned, and we got it to run Doom. The Zecthar delegation fell into stunned silence, their appendages twitching sporadically. You know what I think their problem is? O'Brien mused, loud enough for everyone to hear. They're still operating under the assumption that things need to make sense. Rookie mistake, Kumar agreed, now arranging what appeared to be sushi made with ghost peppers and gold leaf. They haven't realized that humans' greatest strength is our ability to do things specifically because someone said we couldn't, or shouldn't, or that it doesn't make sense. Remember that time someone said humans couldn't make music using only rubber chickens? Rodriguez added. And then someone made an entire rubber chicken orchestra and covered Beethoven's Fifth? The Vkr'lak diplomat's translator crackled with static before giving up entirely. Oh, speaking of music, Kumar brightened. Should we show them our interpretive dance version of the quantum destabilizer's operating manual? You made a dance about our weapon? Ripple of understanding managed to sputter. With a full light show and everything, Rodriguez confirmed. The maintenance procedures are represented through breakdancing. It's actually a pretty effective teaching tool. Our engineering team learned the sequence in half the time. As the evening wore on, it became increasingly clear that the Vkr'lak were beginning to understand a fundamental truth about humanity. Not only were humans unafraid of their advanced technology, they were actively having fun with it. The humans had taken their greatest weapon, improved it, made it environmentally friendly, added unnecessary features, turned it into an art form, and then offered to share their improvements, all while serving increasingly bizarre fusion cuisine and explaining the concept of extreme ironing. By the time the diplomatic dinner was winding down, the Vkr'lak delegation had moved from fear, through confusion, and into a sort of resigned fascination. They had witnessed humans dunking bread into soup, but why make the bread wet on purpose? Learned about the existence of competitive hot dog eating contests. You compete to see who can consume the most processed meat tubes in a time limit? And been introduced to the concept of LARPing. You pretend to be fictional characters and engage in simulated combat and for entertainment? As the aliens prepared to depart, Shimmer and Twilight approached Rodriguez one final time. We have been reviewing our initial assessment of humanity, they said carefully. We believe we may have underestimated the complexity of your species. Common mistake. Rodriguez smiled. Most species see our tendency to do things for the lowels as a weakness. They don't realize that a species that created parkour because regular walking was too boring is probably not a species you want to back into a corner. Indeed. The alien diplomat's patches shifted to a thoughtful blue. Our military strategists are particularly concerned about your species' apparent ability to... What was the phrase? Eat yourself at problems until they go away? Oh, you've been talking to Lieutenant Patel, haven't you? She loves that phrase. We have also noted your species' disturbing tendency to respond to warnings and danger signs with challenge accepted. Yeah, we do that. Rodriguez nodded. You should see what happened when we put a do not touch sign on a button. We had to replace it with please touch this button just to get people to leave it alone. The Vkr'lak diplomat's membrane rippled in what might have been a shudder. We will be updating our diplomatic protocols accordingly. And perhaps we could schedule another cultural exchange? Our scientists are particularly interested in this concept of memes that your crew keeps referencing. Oh, you're not ready for memes yet? Rodriguez laughed. Let's start with something simpler. Have you heard about our space program? It started because we looked at the moon and basically said, bet we can't throw ourselves at that hard enough to land on it. As the Vkr'lak delegation departed, visibly trying to process everything they'd learned about humanity, Rodriguez couldn't help but feel that this was the beginning of a beautiful friendship. After all, any species that could appreciate the absurdity of humans turning their greatest weapon into a coffee-making, doom-running piece of performance art couldn't be all bad. Besides, they still hadn't shown the aliens' cat videos yet. That would definitely have to wait for the next diplomatic meeting. One cultural shock at a time. And this, Captain Rodriguez announced proudly, is what we call a mosh pit. The holographic display showed footage from a heavy metal concert, complete with hundreds of humans enthusiastically slamming into each other, while music that sounded like industrial machinery having an argument with a thunderstorm played in the background. The Vkr'lak Cultural Observation Team's bioluminescent patches were cycling through colors so rapidly it looked like a disco ball having an existential crisis. Let me understand this correctly, First Observer Cascade of Inquiry said slowly. These humans are deliberately colliding with each other. For entertainment? Yep, Lieutenant O'Brien grinned. And this isn't even the weird part. Wait until you see what happens when someone crowd surfs. Crowd surfs? Dr. Kumar tapped a few commands into the display controls, and the footage shifted to show someone being passed overhead through the crowd. The aliens' protective membranes pulsated in collective horror. They're throwing their fellow humans! Cascade of Inquiry's translator crackled with distress. Technically, they're passing them along, Rodriguez corrected. It's a trust exercise. A trust exercise, second observer Pulse of Logic repeated flatly. You trust your fellow humans to not drop you while engaged in ritualistic collision-based dancing? Most of the time, O'Brien shrugged. Though sometimes people do get dropped. That's why we invented mosh pit etiquette. The alien stared at him. There's etiquette for chaos? Of course. Rule 1. If someone falls down, you help them up immediately. Rule 2. No deliberate elbowing or punching. Rule 3. Respect the pit boundary. Rule 4. If someone looks like they're in distress, help them get out. O'Brien counted off on his fingers. See, we're not completely uncivilized. You created formal protocols for controlled violence as entertainment. Cascade of Inquiry noted, their patches settling into a disturbed shade of mauve. This actually explains much about your species' approach to technological advancement. Oh? Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. You treat everything like a mosh pit, Pulse of Logic observed. You establish basic safety protocols, then proceed to push the boundaries of chaos while maintaining just enough order to prevent complete disaster. Kumar snorted into her coffee. That's actually a pretty accurate description of our R&D department. Speaking of which, Rodriguez added, how are they enjoying the improved quantum destabilizer designs we sent over? The alien's patches shifted to an embarrassed pink. Our scientists are somewhat overwhelmed. They're still trying to understand why you added a function to use it as a planetary-scale light show projector. Because it's fun, O'Brien said. Besides, if you're going to have a superweapon, it might as well be multi-purpose, deterrence and entertainment, all in one package. But that's not... Weapons aren't supposed to be... Cascade of Inquiry's translator gave up entirely and just emitted a confused whine. Oh, while we're on the subject of entertainment, Kumar interjected, pulling up another holographic display. We wanted to show you something else humans do for fun. This is called parkour. The footage showed humans leaping between buildings, flipping over obstacles, and generally defying both gravity and common sense. The Zekthar observation team's colors drained to a pale, horrified white. This is how you transport yourselves? Pulse of Logic asked weakly. Oh no, we have perfectly good sidewalks and elevators, Rodriguez assured them. This is just what some humans do for fun. Sometimes we even combine it with other activities. Like what? Well, there's underwater parkour, parkour chess, extreme ironing parkour. Extreme ironing? Yeah, that's where you do your ironing in extreme locations or while doing extreme sports. O'Brien explained cheerfully. Some people combine it with mountain climbing, skydiving, or surfing. The aliens huddled together in their now familiar processing traumatic information formation. We have a theory, Cascade of Inquiry announced after a moment of consultation. Your species evolved not just as persistence hunters, but as persistence everything doers. Go on, Rodriguez encouraged, genuinely curious. You take any activity, no matter how simple or straightforward, and persist in finding ways to make it more complex, more challenging, or more entertaining. You're not satisfied with merely accomplishing a task. You must accomplish it in the most interesting way possible. That actually makes a lot of sense, Kumar mused. It explains cappuccino art, competitive cup stacking, and why we invented 70 different ways to cook an egg. It also explains why your response to our quantum destabilizer wasn't fear or anger, but immediate attempts to improve and repurpose it. Pulse of Logic added. Your species doesn't see ultimate weapons. You see ultimate opportunities for optimization and entertainment. And this is why our High Command has officially classified humans as aggressively innovative, Cascade of Inquiry concluded. You're not just dangerous because of your technology or your military capabilities. You're dangerous because you treat every challenge like a game to be won, every limitation like a rule to be creatively interpreted, and every warning sign like a personal invitation. Rodriguez couldn't help but laugh. You know what the really funny part is? We haven't even shown you our internet cat videos yet. The alien's patches flickered with interest. Cat videos? Oh boy, O'Brien grinned. Should we start with Keyboard Cat or Nyan Cat? Maybe we should ease them into it, Kumar suggested. Start with some basic cat memes, work our way up to Grumpy Cat, then hit them with the full impact of our cat-based entertainment industry. Your species created an entire entertainment industry around your predatory companion animals? Pulse of Logic asked, their membrane rippling with what might have been concern. Created an industry, please, Rodriguez scoffed. We turned them into global celebrities. Some cats have more followers on social media than most world leaders. Followers? Social media. The aliens' translators seemed to be struggling again. Oh right, we haven't explained social media yet, Kumar realized. Should we start with the concept of likes and work our way up to viral trends and influencer culture? The Zekthar observation team's colors shifted to a distinctly queasy green. Perhaps we should process the concept of recreational collision dancing first, Cascade of Inquiry suggested diplomatically. One cultural shock at a time. Fair enough, Rodriguez agreed. In that case, who's ready to learn about human sports? Wait until you hear about cheese rolling. As she watched the aliens' patches cycle through various shades of disbelief and confusion, Rodriguez couldn't help but think that this cultural exchange program was going even better than expected. Not only had they convinced the Zekthar that humanity wasn't worth attacking, but they'd also managed to completely redefine the aliens' understanding of what constituted rational behavior. After all, how do you threaten a species that turns weapons into art installations, treats dangerous activities as entertainment, and has somehow convinced itself that jumping between buildings is a perfectly reasonable hobby? The answer, as the Zekthar were quickly learning, was that you don't. You just sit back, update your diplomatic protocols, and try to figure out how to deal with the species that responds to "this is impossible" with "hold my beer and watch this." And somewhere in the R&D department, someone was probably already figuring out how to make the quantum destabilizer play cat videos. Because of course they were. That's just what humans do. Dr. Kumar stood in front of the combined human Zekthar research team, trying not to laugh at the aliens' increasingly distressed color patterns as she explained her latest proposal. So basically, she continued, pulling up a holographic diagram, if we reverse the polarity of the quantum field generator while simultaneously introducing a controlled cascade of tachyon particles, we can theoretically use the quantum destabilizer to make the perfect cup of coffee. But it's a weapon of mass destruction, senior researcher Flicker of Reason protested, their patches cycling through various shades of incredulous purple. Anything is a coffee maker if you're creative enough, Kumar shrugged. Besides, we already got it to run Doom, stream cat videos, and Project Light shows. Making coffee is practically mundane in comparison. Captain Rodriguez, who was sitting in on the research presentation out of what she claimed was professional interest, but was actually pure entertainment value, couldn't suppress her grin. Don't forget to tell them about the espresso modification. Oh, right. If we adjust the quantum harmonics just so, Kumar manipulated the holographic display, we can create a pressure differential that perfectly replicates the conditions needed for authentic Italian espresso. We're calling it the quantum cappuccino function. The Zekthar research team huddled together in their now familiar humans are breaking physics again formation. Their appendages twisted in what humans had learned to recognize as their equivalent of a collective headache. Let me understand this correctly, lead scientist Wave of Understanding said slowly. You've taken our most advanced military technology that took us nearly 4 decades to develop, and you're using it to make coffee? Really good coffee, Kumar corrected. Like potentially the best coffee in the known universe. The quantum manipulation of water molecules at the subatomic level allows for optimal flavor extraction, while maintaining perfect temperature control. But why? Flicker of Reason's translator seemed to be struggling with the concept. Why would you do this? Because we can, Rodriguez suggested. Also, have you tried the coffee in the station's cafeteria? Trust me. Weaponizing a quantum destabilizer to make better coffee is a perfectly reasonable response. Lieutenant O'Brien, who had been quietly working at a terminal in the corner, suddenly perked up. Hey, Dr. Kumar, I just had an idea. What if we use the tachyon displacement field to heat up pizza? You know how microwaves always leave cold spots? Kumar's eyes lit up. Oh my God, yes! We could achieve perfectly even heating by manipulating the quantum state of each individual molecule. No more cold centers and molten edges. The Zekthar scientists watched in horror as the humans began enthusiastically discussing ways to repurpose their ultimate weapon into the galaxy's most sophisticated food preparation device. Your species, Wave of Understanding observed with what might have been resignation, has a disturbing tendency to look at things designed for one purpose and immediately think of completely unrelated applications. That's not disturbing, that's innovation, Rodriguez countered. Did you know we originally invented microwaves by accident? Some guy was working with radar equipment and noticed it melted his chocolate bar. Instead of being concerned about radiation exposure, he thought, hey, I bet I could cook with this. That's not how scientific advancement is supposed to work, Flicker of Reason protested weakly. Oh, you'd hate hearing about how we discovered penicillin then? Kumar chuckled. Or artificial sweeteners, or the slinky. Actually, a lot of human innovations came from people either making mistakes or deliberately ignoring the intended purpose of things. Speaking of ignoring intended purposes, O'Brien called out. I think I just figured out how to make the quantum destabilizer play music by manipulating subspace frequencies. Anyone up for converting it into the world's most overpowered speaker system? The Zekthar scientists' patches all shifted to a uniform shade of what the humans had dubbed existential dread blue. But why would you need a weapon-grade speaker system? Wave of Understanding asked, clearly dreading the answer. Need? Rodriguez laughed. Oh, you're still thinking in terms of necessity. Let me introduce you to a very important human concept, because it would be awesome. That's not a scientific principle, one of the junior Zekthar researchers pointed out. Sure it is. Some of our greatest achievements started with someone saying, wouldn't it be cool if, followed by something that probably should have been impossible. Kumar pulled up another display. Like this modification I'm working on that would let us use the quantum field to create holographic fireworks that can be seen from orbit. Fireworks, from orbit, Flicker of Reason repeated slowly. You want to use a planet-destroying weapon to create entertainment visible from space. Well, when you say it like that, it sounds ridiculous, O'Brien said. We prefer to think of it as repurposing military technology for peaceful applications that also happen to be really cool. Besides, Kumar added, we already figured out how to make it environmentally friendly. The quantum light show function actually has negative carbon emissions. We're helping the planet while we entertain ourselves. The Zekthar research team seemed to be struggling to process this information. Their appendages were twitching in what humans had learned to recognize as their version of a stress response. Oh, Rodriguez suddenly remembered something. We should show them what the engineering team did with the cooling system. You know, the modification that lets it generate snow for indoor skiing. You made it create weather? Wave of Understanding's patches flickered rapidly. Well, yeah. The quantum cooling array was already there. We just refined it a bit. Now it can maintain perfect powder conditions for skiing, while simultaneously making hot chocolate. Kumar beamed proudly. We're calling it the Winter Wonderland Protocol. The truly terrifying part, Flicker of Reason observed to their fellow researchers, is that they're probably going to have this all working by next week. Oh no, the skiing function already works, O'Brien corrected. We tested it yesterday. Marketing wants to call it Quantum Powder TM, but we're still working on the trademark issues. Marketing? The alien's translator seemed to glitch on the word. You're planning to sell this? Well, not the weapon parts, obviously, Rodriguez assured them. But the entertainment and beverage preparation functions? Absolutely. We're thinking of marketing it as the ultimate luxury appliance. Make coffee like a supervillain is one of the proposed slogans. As the Zekthar scientists tried to cope with the revelation that humans were planning to commercialize their repurposed superweapon, Kumar's display pinged with a new notification. Oh, excellent news, she announced. The R&D team just successfully tested the quantum-enhanced barbecue function. Apparently, the precision molecular excitation creates the perfect sear on steaks while maintaining ideal internal temperature gradients. We're going to need a catchier name than quantum-enhanced barbecue, though, O'Brien mused. How about Schrodinger's grill? You know, because until you open the quantum field, the steak is simultaneously raw and perfectly cooked. The Zekthar researchers' patches had all faded to a pale, defeated gray. They had come to this joint research initiative expecting to study weapons technology. Instead, they were watching humans systematically transform their greatest military achievement into what appeared to be the galaxy's most overqualified kitchen appliance. And somewhere in the background, the quantum destabilizer was playing Never Gonna Give You Up through its newly installed subspace speaker system. Because of course it was. That's just what happens when you let humans into your research and development department. The end.